and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension and everything and the drama.
How dare! Look at this! How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Every time Tyler says that, it's just we talk about two markets that are just completely not in any calm mode at any point. But thank you, Tyler, for trying to calm us down. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio. There's no sugarcoating this week in Calgary Flames land. This had kind of a special moment and then a complete collapse, joined by Dan Stevenson from Fireside Chat. Dan, how are you today?
My day's not too bad, but as a Flames fan, I'm feeling kind of rough this week.
It was a tough week. Do you know, and I don't want to rub this in, do you know that Connor Bedard has as many points in the last 5 games as the leading point getter for the Calgary Flames? They both have 11.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, and the last time that the Flames put a puck in the net, it was an empty net by Michael Backlund. So yeah, things
looked
are
like
kind
the team
of
started to turn things around in the Philadelphia and then the Blue Jackets game, and then it just went off the rails again.
Yeah. Well, let's try to. I think it's easy to rant and to rave, and I think to shout and all of that, but I think you and I are pretty good at trying to give Flames fans some perspective here. So it's not great. We can't do that, but we can maybe provide some perspective here. But first, before we get into the games, I do want to mention that a former Flame, Mel Bridgman, passed away on Saturday. He played actually with the Flyers, the Flames, the Devils, the Red Wings, and the Canucks. And Flames alumni posted that we are deeply saddened by the passing of Flames alumnus Mel Bridgman, a natural leader and a trusted teammate. He had an impact on everyone he repped. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends during this incredibly difficult time. Rest in peace, Mel. Of course, he was recognized by a number of things, including he was the first general manager of the Ottawa Senators when they were for their franchise. He was a Calgary Flame, and he played with make sure I get this right here. He played with the Flames. Of course, he was part of a famous trade with the Flames for Brad Marsh, actually, back then. But he was active from 1971 to 1989, and he played with the Flames. Make sure I get this up right here. Give me a second. Come on, internet. He also played with the Victoria Clippers, the Nanaimo Clippers. He played with the Flames 1981-82. He in 82-83, total of 142 games, 45 goals, 80 assists, 125 points. So rest in peace, Mel Bridgman. I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think I was reading about his career. I didn't remember him as a Flame, but he was the GM of the Ottawa Senators when they were expanding the league. And it's kind of a funny story, I guess. 3 separate times during the expansion draft, he made illegal picks due to the fact that Senators management forgot to bring a power supply or batteries to power their computers. So he made 3 illegal picks and had to apologize after each one.
Technology, am I right?
That's right. Even back then, back in whenever the mid-90s when Ottawa was expanding, we were still having technology problems.
Yes. 977 NHL games, 252 goals, 449 assists, 701 points. Speaking of games, let's go through the week here. What happened? Well, won't go through all the games and analyze them, but they did beat the Flyers 2-1. We did podcasts there, but they did beat Columbus on Nazem Kadri's 1,000th game. They won 5-1. They lose to the Blackhawks 4-0. They lose to the Wild 2-0. In general, what were kind of your takeaways from the week?
This was not great hockey. I mean, the Blackhawks game, I think, that was the Flames playing a game, not, I don't think, a good game by any means, and that's why they got trounced. And we said on our show when we recorded both that Blackhawks game and the Wild game, reminded us of talking about expansion teams. The Wild from when they first expanded under Barry Trotz back in the day when it was just all trap hockey. It was two really boring games.
Yeah, that's.
Didn't feel. I don't know if they're already giving up or they're just having a mental hiccup.
Well, they can't score, and I think that is causing an immense amount of frustration for them. They scored against Columbus. I mean, that was by far their best game, really, of the last four that they played, where they got off to that quick 2-0 lead, and Morgan Frost scores, and the Blue Jackets get back into it, but Nazem Kadri in his 1,000th game kind of clinches it, and it looks like you come into this month thinking that some of these games are winnable because you're playing a Chicago team that's still, I don't think that Chicago team is as fun as Chicago looked that night. I don't think that I'm not looking at that Chicago team as a playoff team. In Minnesota, they're probably better than they are playing right now, but I don't know if you're coming away as a Minnesota Wild fan particularly excited about that team overall. I mean, I'm not doing a Minnesota Wild podcast, but I mean, there's some frustrations for sure in terms of luck. I mean, Huberdeau on a breakaway can't score. Kadri does a between the legs thing in Minnesota, can't score. Ultimately, it's coming. Yeah, I mean, Matt Coronado had 11 shots on goal in that Chicago game, and I thought Megan Mickelson made a really good point on the post-game show. There's not enough traffic going to the front of the net. Like, this is sort of reminding me of kind of that 2008 Flames team, or really sort of one of the themes that the Flames have been over the last number of years. No matter what the coach is, except Daryl Sutter. Daryl Sutter kind of fought it out of them, but I think Huska, Gullickson, Jeff Ward it's all been kind of a similar theme. There's a bunch of shots going to the net, and it looks like they're shooting the puck, but there's no creativity or there's no purpose to these shots. It is a very bland offensive game plan. Like, Dan, on yesterday, I had the Flames Wild game on one end, and I had the Canucks play the Colorado Avalanche on the other end, and you just watch, like, it was such a night and day thing. Like, Colorado is zipping this puck around like it's so easy, and it is a grind and a chore for the Flames to complete 2 passes in a row. Like, it's just it's day.
It feels like the Flames are almost just going through the motions and not thinking about what they're doing. And like you said, they're not getting a man in front, or even that Chicago game. There's a number of times they just either passed it poorly or just gave it right to Chicago. Like, it almost feels like they're just not thinking about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's causing them issues.
I guess one question before we kind of dig into some of the other topics. Are you blaming Ryan Huska? How much is this on Huska and how much is this on the players?
I don't know why you would blame Huska. I don't think that he's doing anything different than he did last year. I think we all knew that this team was going to regress to this at some point, with or without Huska. And I think that last year they overperformed what we expected from them. I would be hard-pressed to drop this on the feet of Ryan Huska.
I'm with you. But he is, I mean, not surprising when you are the 32nd team in the league, your coaching is going to be like, there's going to be criticism of coaching for sure. So I get it, but I am not a believer. I'm also with you. I'm not necessarily like Kent Wilson put this and I pushed back on him. And I know that Kent Wilson is sort of a demigod in the Calgary Flames community, but he put a lot of blame on the development of the Flames on the feet of Ryan Huska. And I pushed back on that. And I will give, and he didn't want to hear it, but I think that there's a lot more criticism that needs to go to Zary, Frost, Sharangovich, and even Coronado. I don't think that they have been close to good enough this year. And I don't know how you blame Huska for that. Like at some point, it's easy to say, yeah, this is on coaching. At some point, you have to, it is an onus on the player to find a way to develop and improve. They have to take
these guys are the best players in the world. A coach can only be so much part of that.
Yeah. And a guy
I don't think that Huska's system, which is really what the coach is there for, has been the issue. I think it's the execution of said system.
Yeah. You look at a guy like Sam Honzik, and I know that, yes, he has only 2-3 points this year, but Sam Honzik took the time in the offseason to put on some weight, put on 15 pounds, I believe, 15 pounds, I believe. And he's been able to be a mainstay in the lineup. Now, Sam Honzik was never projected to be a superstar in this league, but Sam Honzik is putting in the effort. At times with all four of those guys that we mentioned, I think with Coronado, it's certainly a confidence thing. But with Frost and Sharangovich and Zary, I don't see a consistent effort from them. I see occasional efforts from them. I see flashes of things, but I haven't watched I don't think I've seen a consistent Connor Zary game this year. And I don't think I've seen a consistent Igor Sharangovich game this year. I think I have from Frost. I would say Frost has been better than the other two, but those two have not been consistent enough.
Yeah, I would say most of the team hasn't been consistent.
No.
I think the ones you called out for sure, but I can't name many people that are that consistent.
That's fair. But I like you kind of look at,
and sorry, going back to the coach thing while we're on this. Is this the best year for anybody? No, I can't think of any Flames having a great year. But is Huska the guy I want behind the bench as young players come in? The Flames are part of this rebuild. Yes. So even if I were to put this year on Huska, I don't know what you do about it. I think he's the guy you want behind the bench. So you just got to chalk it up to a bad year.
Yeah.
He's a great dev coach.
Yeah, it's we all know the Flames need some offensive talent. They don't have enough offensive talent. And that's kind of the thing. And, but let's talk about Kadri's 1000th game and the presentation of that. I mean, probably the best thing that happened this week, and the Flames always do a really good job with these presentations. But I thought I don't know if you were there or you watched on TV, Dan, but I thought they did a really good job. They were able to get the messages from his former teams, the Maple Leafs and the Avalanche as well, that all were able to participate. It was a nice portrait. It was really cool to see one of his kids doing the starting lineup, and his family was all there. I really thought that was a really special night. And I think, unfortunately, this week, that has all gotten lost. And I think a shout out to the Flames staff for the Flames creative staff for making sure that was a really good night for Nazem Kadri.
Yeah, like you said, the Flames are good at this, right? I mean, we saw this with, Backlund's 1000th game. I think even going back to Jerome and Kipper's retirements, the Flames are really good at doing these ceremonies. And I wasn't expecting anything less.
Yeah. No, it was good. This is going to be a weird, hear me out on this. Nazem Kadri's numbers are not Hall of Fame worthy, But Nazem Kadri's story, I think, is Hall of Fame worthy. I think he's the first Muslim to play in the NHL, I believe. I think that the fact of some of the stuff that he has gone through, and he's had to do some, we talked about this with Matt last week. He's had to do some growing up. There's no question about that. I mean, I think we all remember that incident with Mark Giordano back in 2018. We don't need to relitigate that, but he's a much different human being and a much different player than he was in Toronto. And I do think that I hope that Nazem, I don't think he's going to ever be a first ballot, but I hope Nazem Kadri gets into the Hall of Fame. I think that there's a worthy discussion in terms of his story that he gets in. His numbers are not going to get him in, but his story might. What say you?
Yeah, and I think we have to remember there's other halls of fame. Like I can see him going into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. You know, I don't think necessarily you have to be in the Hockey Hall of Fame or bust. I think that, like you said, his story could get him in. I don't think his numbers are worthy of it, and I think you've got to be careful with who you bring in on story. But there's a lot of Hall of Fames that he could be very worthy for. I don't know if Ontario is a Sports Hall of Fame, but, you know, I think, and maybe other honors too. Like, I don't know if you would say these Order of Canada worthy, but I think there's other ways that you could, you know, instill honor on him besides the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Fair enough. I mean, it's not the NHL. The reason I say Hockey Hall of Fame, though, it's not the NHL Hall of Fame. It's his story is impacting hockey, and I do think that's kind of why I think that there should be a bit of a discussion on that part.
Yeah, I think I don't disagree. There should be a discussion. Just looking at who hasn't been in. I mean, you know, there's guys that have had a story. You know, I would say even guys like McGillney, who took a while to get in there, right? That the story hasn't got them in.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that need to get in. There's no question in terms of that debate. I have noted, it's not the Hall of Good, as Sean says, it's the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
and I still think that he can be honored in a number of ways. I mean, he's not Albertan, but, you know, there's the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, there's the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame we could go into, there's the Canada Sports Hall of Fame. I think that there's a lot of ways he can be honored and recognized.
Yeah. And, I mean, if there's, based on a report here, which we'll talk about in a second, I do wonder, we've talked about office buildings or office spaces in the Scotia Place for people in the Flame staff. I think that they would create an office space for Nazem Kadri to do something in.
Yeah, I think it depends if Kadri, I mean, you know, there's been a lot of talk of, is Kadri going to be here at the end of the season or not? Like, I think a lot of that depends on where Kadri ends up.
Yeah. Well, let's get into that, because that was the big yelling point on social media this week. Darren Dreger on Insider Trading reported that Murray Edwards does not want to trade Nazem Kadri. This was the night. I just want to point out the context of this, because I do think this is important before we go into this. This was the night after Nazem Kadri played his 1,000th game. And according to Dreger, Murray Edwards doesn't want to trade Nazem Kadri, and he's happy with the core, and they haven't scored since. Dan, let me start here. Has Murray Edwards ever given an interview to Calgary or Calgary media? I don't recall one. I'm curious
about the Calgary Flames. Not that I can remember.
Has he? What? Okay. Well, he's given an interview about some other stuff, though.
I think he's done some other business things over the years. Yeah, I think he might have even been part of the press conference when they announced the Scotiabank naming, not Scotiabank, Pengrowth before that. But I'd have to go back and check.
Okay. So
it's been a while.
It's been a while. Okay.
I think he's done some for some of his other businesses too.
Okay. I do think it was a little odd that he wasn't at the Kadri presentation, but it was other ownership group there, but he wasn't there. I wasn't a fan of that. But anyway, I don't know where Murray Edwards is at this time. Maybe before I give my opinion of all of this, what was your impression of all of this?
I think people are making a mountain out of a molehill on this. I mean, what are you gonna say? You know, around the 1,000th game, what are you gonna say? Oh, I'm glad he got 1,000. Let's get him out of here now. Like, to me, this is exactly what you say. You say you're happy with the guy. He's a great Flame. We have to remember that this is Drager reporting this. This isn't a Murray Edwards statement from the team. So, you know, maybe he said this to Drager, or Drager heard it, you know, at the urinal while he was talking to somebody else. Like, we don't quite know the context of this, but I wouldn't expect Murray Edwards to say anything different.
That's kind of where I'm at with this as well. I feel like there is a really huge overreaction to this story. And there's a whole other conversation I think that we can have at some point about how we take every insider report as absolute gospel truth and make it and run with this as if it's actual fact. I think we need to have some sort of journalistic critical thinking in terms of the stuff that we're hearing from insiders. I'm not saying that what Drager said was false or anything like that. Please don't get me wrong. But I think you have to take the context of what was like. When did Murray Edwards say this? Like, this is after the 1,000th game. Of course, he's going to say something to congratulate Nazem Kadri. Who wouldn't do that? You should do that. You should congratulate people after success. You don't dump on them after success.
You're paying this guy $7 million to play for you. I would hope you like him and what he's giving you.
Yes. And like, Nazem Kadri has been a really good Flame for the most part. There's like, why would you say it? Why would you expect ownership to say anything different?
And, you know, well, you're talking about we need to take what we hear from insiders as a grain of salt. I think this goes back to fans' desire for media as well. I mean, we look at some of the trade deadline day where these guys are working all day, and, you know, they have the hockey insiders on various different podcasts and radio shows and that sort of thing. And really, I think it's, you know, they need something to talk about, especially with a team like Calgary for the 20-minute hit the Drager's doing. So sometimes I think they have to bring up things that maybe aren't that big a deal and talk about them because all they've got. Otherwise, you don't want to hear about, you know, what Drager bought for groceries last night because he's got 20 minutes to fill.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we crave it. We all crave it, and that's totally fine.
Yeah, and, you know, let me ask you this question, Kevin, and this is what I've been asking everyone who's sort of making a big deal out of this. Is keeping Nazem Kadri and rebuilding the Calgary Flames mutually exclusive? Can you do one without doing the other?
Well, we tossed this around. Sean and I had a discussion. I'm going to bring this in from a Vancouver perspective because it's really interesting to hear a lot of Calgary Flame pundits have this speculation of what Nazem Kadri is going to get you. And I think that you should go back and listen to the Vancouver Canucks podcast and what Sean said about what he would get for Nazem Kadri. And it wasn't as much as Flame fans are hoping for. And I think that this is one of the things that I think is being really missed here. There's a lot of fantasy booking on Nazem Kadri. He is 35 years old with 3 years left on a $7 million contract that the Flames should absolutely, in no uncertain terms, unless you are guaranteed 2 first-round picks, do any retaining of salary. Like you're just, I don't see that as a smart thing to do. And you could argue with me that the cap is going up. His age is going up, and there's not a guarantee that Nazem Kadri will be a top 6 forward going forward. There's a pretty much an argument that he's not going to be that now going forward. To me, Dan, the Nazem Kadri deal is really a Noah Hannafin deal. You get a couple of picks, a conditional first, a project, not a prospect, a project, which Neil Miramanov is. I think people are going to be underwhelmed with a Nazem Kadri trade. And no, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I don't think that you'll end up needing that top 3-5 pick or that number 1 pick that everybody is desiring. Trading Nazem Kadri does not guarantee you that in any way, shape, or form. I think that there's probably a little bit of an argument that you could keep him and continue to help develop players as he's going forward. And he has done it. he has helped Connor Zary. Zary's not playing well right now, but Huska's been trying to put Zary with Kadri. He's trying. He's helped Coronado. He helped Parsol. I think he's probably been in good conversations, and we'll never know, but I will assume that he's been helping Zayne Parekh. I think there's an argument to keep Nazem Kadri. I just don't think you're going to get as much as people think.
I think if you look around at the teams, I mean, I don't know who the forerunners are anymore that fans think for Nazem Kadri. I think if he's going to a contending team at 35, there's probably a third line centerman.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get, a ton for a third line centerman. Show me where that's happened in the past. I think even if you don't retain, I don't know if many teams are going to want to take this full salary. Like, that's a lot of money for a 35-year-old. I think they're going to ask the Flames to retain. And I think that might be why, why it doesn't get done. And like you said, I don't see any reason to move Kadri. Like, you need veterans even in a rebuild. Look at Chicago. Chicago's got nobody. They've got like 3 guys you've heard of. I think that was Edmonton's big problem in their rebuilding. They had nobody, right? They had no veterans. You look at a team like San Jose, who's put guys like Toffoli into their lineup, and they have a couple veterans. I think you need veterans on this team. And do I think Kadri is a number 1 center on a playoff team? No. But do I think he's great in the room? Do I think he's great off the ice? Do I think he's great for the young players? Yes, I do. I don't see any need. I don't think you get nearly as much as like fans think you're going to get for Kadri. I think fans are thinking about the old Kadri when they're looking at trades and what he was, 4 or 5 years ago. I think it's better just keep this guy and roll him through your lineup, whether that's line 1, line 2, line 3. I mean, right now, I don't think the Flames can afford to part with a center.
No, they can't. But
and Matt, there's been talk for how many years about Kadri moving. It doesn't happen. Why do we think it's going to happen this year? It's like every year we thought that Conroy would spend all of his, he would go out there and do rental deals or broker salary deals, and it never happened. Why do we think it's going to happen now?
Well, and this is the other part of why I think that this has been a bit of an overreaction, is I think people are forgetting 2 things. Let's go back to last year's trade deadline. And what did the Flames do?
Nothing.
They didn't add. They didn't subtract. What did the Flames generally do in the offseason? They didn't add. Nothing. They haven't added anybody. They are well aware, and Craig Conroy has consistently. How many times has Craig Conroy said that they have an age group that they're looking at, and they're not, and that's what they're looking for, even for a number 1 or 2 center. This is their age group, and this is what they want. It's 23 to 27, I think, somewhere in that age. They have been pretty consistent in what they are doing. I don't really, and no trade in terms of a seller's trade is going to happen now. It is way too early in the season for this to happen. These types of trades happen usually in the second half of the year. And as Pat Steinberg says, they decided to trade Elias Lindholm in November, and that didn't get done until the end of January. It's not like these trades are going, it's not like NHL 25 when you get to hit forced trade. This takes time to get exactly what the Flames will want if they want to trade Kadri at all. And I think it's not
like Conroy's like the beer cellar of the Dome. Nazem, get your Nazem here.
Yeah, exactly.
I told Kadri, who wants them? Like, it takes time to get these deals done, and there's a lot of moving parts, and you may have to get a no move waiver from Nazem. But the other thing that I think the part of the Murray quote that you're missing is, I read that same quote from Drager, and he also said Nazem loves Calgary. Like, if you want to be here, I want a guy who wants to be here. And even if the team's not doing well, if you want to be here and you love the city, let's keep you.
Yeah, I think that helps.
Is moving Nazem Kadri going to bring back assets that are fundamentally going to change this rebuild? Are we going to look back in 2028 and go, geez, if they would have moved Nazem, they would have got a cup or would have got that one asset?
None of the trades that people are thinking, the Rasmus Anderson trade, a Nazem Kadri trade, or a Blake Coleman trade, or even a Joel Hanley trade, will bring pieces that we think.
Nobody's giving me anything for Hanley.
Well, you might get a late pick for him later.
I think that you could probably get about the same for Kadri as you would for Coleman, and right now I'd rather move the winger.
That's fair.
And I think you might actually get more for Coleman, because if I was a GM, bringing in a 35-year-old with 3 years left at $7 million, I'm not asking the Flames to eat that. Even if the Flames have to eat a year at 4 point, half of 4.9, I think you could easily sell that.
I think that might, I think the Coleman salary, when is he done? When is he a UFA?
End of next year.
Yeah, I think that's I think if I'm going to Murray and ownership group, that's a little bit more palatable than Kadri in 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to, let's say, eat half, let's say I got to eat 3.5 for 5 more years on Kadri, I don't think that's doable. Also, he's in good health now. He's 35. Who knows what's going to happen with him?
Yeah. And the other thing that people have also missed in that Drago report, he said 3 times, things could change. Things could change. Things could change. So at this
and you
point,
know what I mean? We've all sold something in life or gotten rid of something that we loved, right? We've all that one item that we like, but we get rid of it or we part with it or we whatever. Like, again, what's Murray going to say? Well, I hate my core. Then fire your GM. Like, I think in some ways this might have also been a bit of a strategic piece here, Kevin, that let's say you do want to make a Kadri deal. I'm not saying that they're playing 3D chess, but let's say Conroy does want to make a deal. He's going to say to the other GM, look, you saw the quote. The old man loves it. Give me something I can take back to the old man to get this approved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I just think there's a lot more to this than Murray is in love with this team and he's not interested in a rebuild or anything like that. I have
to imagine that Murray loved Gimlet too, and they moved him.
Yeah. Yeah. Murray loved Kiprusoff.
I bet
Kipper retired.
That's true, but I mean, there was a close deal for Kipper to Toronto back in the day. So
so you can love a guy, but I think Murray also has spent a lot of money on a new rink, and if it comes down to Kadri or playoffs in 3 years, I think he'd take the playoffs. He likes to win, he likes money, but I think this is kind of silly. What are you going to say?
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with this. I think we're still in wait and see mold. Look, the Flames will do what they have to do. I don't think this Flames management group is under any illusions of what this team is right now. They shouldn't be anyway. And I think Craig Conroy has done probably out of any GM, and I'm including Tree Living in this, he's done a better job of managing up to ownership. I think that Tree Living probably it's understandable. I think people criticize Tree Living for the Gaudreau Tkachuk situation when that was an absolute that was a gut punch. I'm not going to relitigate the Tree Living thing, but the Gaudreau leaving the last minute was an absolute gut punch of the organization, and I think to the Flames fan base as well. We don't need to relitigate that, but I mean, yes, I remember even podcasting, we probably need to talk about rebuild, but he was in an emotional place where he wanted revenge.
Yeah. And I'm just, everything to ask the question about Murray and if he's been out in public, I'm doing a little bit of research here as we're talking. He hasn't, but that's because for a while we had Ken King, who was supposed to be the voice of ownership.
Yeah. Rest in peace.
Right. He wasn't an owner, but he was supposed to be that guy who talked to ownership and would come out and speak on their behalf. And I think a lot of times he was the guy who would say the hard things and either take the crap from ownership or, be the one who would take some of that heat off the GM.
Yeah. And part of, again, it's back to that managing up thing. I think the one, especially in the Canadian market, but I would argue in an NHL market right now, one of the things that you have to do is deal with ownership. And, sometimes ownership doesn't have the same, sometimes ownership has ideas and you have to kind of sell them on it. Murray owns the team, guys. You can ask to sell the team unless you have the money. And I know that Dan and I combined for $4. We can't buy the team ourselves. And we're not
just found another loony, man. Kevin, I just found another loony. So now you got $5.
$5. Okay.
We can't even get a beer.
Yes, there we go. Well, barely a beer in Vancouver, barely.
Not even a beer.
Yeah. But
and I think nothing because I'm reading the quote again. Nothing in this quote says Murray says he won't move Kadri. He says he likes Kadri. Great. I like a lot of things too, but that doesn't mean that you won't part with them. He likes the core of his team. Great. I'm glad he likes the core of his team. It's a good core. Nothing in this quote tells me that this means they're not going to move Kadri.
Yeah. Yep. So
if you didn't like his core, then move the guy. I don't know. It's kind of silly to say that you like your core. Well, of course you like your core. You move on from.
In the NFL, before we move on here, in the NFL, the Jets owner, Woody Johnson, basically threw his team under the bus and said, they can't pass. And, if they had a quarterback, things would be better. I don't want my owner to do stuff like that. That's classless stuff. I want I'm not saying that, you could have a different view in this team than Murray Edwards, but Murray Edwards is not going to come out and say that this team is horrible. If you can't expect that.
And one of the reasons guys like Kadri, guys like, Backlund want to stay here is because this team treats their players really well. And part of treating their players really well is, I think, Murray not being in the media, not meddling in this team. I mean, how often have we seen, the Carolina owner and the Tampa Bay owner sort of meddling in their team? I think that's part of how you keep your players happy.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's So I thought that was it was a bit of an overreaction, and I know there's people that are going to disagree with us, and that's okay. But that's I'm glad we got a different perspective out there. We're not yelling with the rest. I think that there's some fans that are going to appreciate that. I hope they do. Hit like and subscribe, by the way, on the YouTube video. Tell your friends about us. Yeah. We got a not an NHL debut, but a season debut. Jan Kuznetsov. First game in 666 days. He played that on Tuesday. He actually played 3. I put in the agenda too, but he played in Columbus. He actually played top 4 minutes, 22 minutes in that Chicago game where Mackenzie Weegar.
And he got his first NHL point in Columbus too.
Yes. And he played with Rasmus Andersson because Kevin Ball couldn't play. And then at one point, the entire defensive core was in the Mackenzie Weegar and Joel Hanley were in the penalty box, and then Joel Farabee
in Calgary and Chicago. That's crazy.
Yeah. Very rare. I do have a criticism here about this while I'm here. And I was particularly disappointed with one player, and I know last time we podcasted, we said we aren't going to talk about the fourth line. But that was a game that I think we needed a little bit more from Ryan Lomberg for. Nick Foligno, there was the early hit Farabee on Nazar that Nazar left the game for. And then Foligno hit Zary before he hit Parekh. We'll get to the Parekh injury in a bit. I was really disappointed in Ryan Lomberg in that game. For me, I'm maybe a little bit more old school. I don't think that someone should be running around in your home rink with hurting your players. And Ryan Lomberg was brought in to specifically not allow that. And I got to tell you, I was really disappointed in Lomberg. I was kind of pissed at him. And I
don't know how much that's Lomberg versus a coaching decision.
Fair enough. This was different than the Vegas game when Sissons hit Parekh, because that was midway through the third in Vegas, and the Flames had to come fight back in the game. There was enough time for Lomberg to do something, and he was on.
And I wonder, after what we were seeing, if the coaches just said, let's not send this game into chaos. It's Chicago. If it was Edmonton or something, maybe. But why?
I just think in terms of, it's not even a fight, Dan. I don't know if Ryan Lomberg provided any energy to get the Flames back into that game.
I don't know that Ryan Lomberg's energy would have mattered much.
It might have, if you can get a little bit of a good hit or something, it might, for the most part.
I think we could say that about almost anything on the roster, though. Hey, Matt Coronado, you could just get a goal. You get more energy.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that that was what the Flames needed here.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you're saying. I mean, and let's be honest, everybody has bad games, right?
Yeah.
But the fourth line not looking good is not the Flames' issue. I mean, we can have a discussion, and I'm not trying to take Lomberg off the hook, but the fourth line not looking good is not the Flames' issue right now.
No. It's there's a number of other ones, but Kuznetsov ended up playing 3 games. He got his first NHL point. For me, he looks very confident, and I think he's a really good skater. He kind of, I think he could be a more disciplined Nikita Zadorov going forward. I think that this is a guy that could be a Zayne Parekh partner if going forward. There's a lot I really like about Yan Kuznetsov. I don't know what you feel. I mean, it's not perfect, but I think that this is a guy that took the Craig Conroy message of take a jersey and is forcing the Flames to make a decision. Is he a superstar?
No, and I don't think he ever, projects to be higher than a 5'6" guy. I think that's exactly what he is and what he will be and what we all expect him to be. And I think he's doing fine with that. When we look at the rest of the roster, he's not doing any better, I'd say better than, with the other guys like Bean and guys like that in there. I think keep him here for the season or until he doesn't look good. I see no reason not to. You got to start moving young players through.
Yeah. I think eventually when they start bringing up some of the young players, I think we'll see Kuznetsov be a bit more consistently in the lineup. I mean, I don't think he's leaving the lineup necessarily soon, but yeah, I think well done on his part, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, I don't think you take him out of lineup for any reason anytime soon.
No.
And he's one of those tweener guys that, he's 23. He's been around for a while. Right, we lost the other tweener guy the fans wanted to see on waivers at the beginning of the season. I think you've got to see what do you have here in Kuznetsov, and this is your chance to do that. It's not like him being in lineup right now is going to affect this team. They're already at the bottom, so give him a shot.
Yeah. So the other thing that happened this week, unfortunately, it's a bit of a gut punch for sure, was the injury to Zayne Parekh. Now. It was a hit in the Chicago game with Nick Foligno. It didn't look like a hard, dirty hit. It led me to believe that I think Zayne Parekh might have been battling an injury all along, and that's been part of the reason why he's been in and out of the lineup, other than probably some development things. But he's now week to week. It's one of the sad things, Dan, is I had an idea for Zayne Parekh, and I think you would appreciate this. It was back. Do you remember when Hulk Hogan was Mr. America back in 2002-3?
You want to put Zayne under a mask?
Yes, I was going to have Mr. Wrangler, and then you have and the guy is that's not Zayne Parekh, and you have the AHL commissioner running around. That's Zayne Parekh, and Parekh is running away, and then he goes to the Wrangler crowd. He reveals his mask, and people cheer. I was kind of thinking,
how do you plan to do a loser leaves town match or a unmasking match in the AHL?
Well, you only needed that for a couple of weeks, and then he could be transported to the World Juniors. Then
I'm surprised you wouldn't just rename him like Payne Zarek or something. You change the letters around, nobody knows who the guy is.
That's Payne Zarek. No, it isn't. That's not Zayne Parekh. It is Payne Zarek.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, we laugh, but it's unfortunate he's injured. It sucks he's injured. I think that the positive or the silver lining out of this is there may be a path for him to get some AHL time, which really is what he ultimately needed. I think that people have been blaming Huska for something that this is another one that I don't feel Brian Huska is getting. There's things you want to criticize Huska for, fine. He did not make the rule that a 19-year-old cannot play in the AHL. And I said this to Matt last week, Dan. I know that there were some analytic numbers that are suggesting that Zayne Parekh has been the Flames' best defenseman. I think anybody with eyeballs sees something completely different. I think that this is a guy, I wouldn't say is struggling. I don't know if that's the word I would necessarily use. I would say he is learning. He is learning the NHL game, and it is much different than the OHL game. These are bigger players. These are faster players. These are stronger players. These are older players that know their game. Like a Nick Foligno is a very tough customer. You're not going to have a Nick Foligno in the OHL. It is just a different. It's different. It's development. That's what happens. Someone mentioned that, look at Lane Hudson. Look at what Lane Hudson played in the NCAA against older men. Cale Makar, that a lot of people have been comparing Zayne Parekh to, played in the NCAA. You were expecting an OHL defenseman who is 19 years old to come in and save the franchise, and I don't think that this is a reasonable expectation. The kid needs to develop, and there's nothing wrong with that.
We've talked about this before the season started, you and I, right? That, I mean, he's not ready for the NHL. Reminds me of that Britney Spears song, not a girl, not yet a woman. Like, he's not quite the NHL ready man body as Tree Living would say, but he's not, going to gain anything by playing with boys anymore in the OHL. I think he has to be on the NHL roster, but if I'm the coaches right now, I would really limit his play time. And even if you were to have him play one game a week and then, spend the rest of the time doing conditioning and workouts and putting on muscle, like I think part of the reason, and when you were talking earlier about, why did Lomberg not get involved there? I don't think there's anything bad about that hit. I just think that it's showing that maybe Parech's not physically ready. Maybe that's what you've got to spend the year getting them to do, is play less and get ready.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if Parech does not end up in the American League next year.
I think he's going to spend at least half a year. I Flame social media is going to blow up, but he's going to spend at least half a season in the American League next year.
Yeah, like I see at this point, he's not helping the Flames game, in my opinion, enough where keeping him out of the lineup is going to affect your overall, is going to affect the overall game. So I would say at this point, keep him out of the game. Let him develop, let him grow, let him do whatever you need him to do. Almost use him as the 7th or 8th defenseman, and let him learn from watching. Because I mean, can you go down from here? Is he going to single-handedly take this team on his back? Is it going to be Parekh and Wolf will dig this team out of their jam?
No, and it's not a reasonable expectation. Now, I guess the question would be when Rasmus Andersson gets traded, and maybe if, but mostly when. What do you do do you give Parekh more ice time later in the year to see what he's like, or do you?
If Parekh earns that ice time, sure. But right now, I think if I was looking for a young player to give that time to, I'd probably look to a guy like Verstavich.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Or Ball, or I don't know that just because Parekh is there means he should get more ice time.
Yeah. I
mean, right now, if I look at the defense, I think Pahal, I think Kuznetsov, both those guys could fill in on that second pair with Ball. I wouldn't put Parekh there.
Well, and again, depending on what you get for Rasmus Andersson, you could end up getting a close to NHL or in a lower level NHL player that could fill that spot as well, right? So have to see what happens there. I mean, it depends on the team's salary cap situation on both ends, right? And what's going on. I mean, we know that Rasmus Andersson is a pretty reasonable contract, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has the cap room to make it work exactly, right? You look back at the Elias Lindholm trade. In order for the Canucks to make that work, they had to trade Andrei Kuzmenko. So there might have to be a money in, money out situation, and a player you may have to take on a contract, right? So we'll see.
I just Again, if you're earning spots in this roster, I don't think that Parekh has done anything to earn Rasmus's spot.
Yeah, I understand people's excitement
He
about
hasn't
him.
been bad. I'm excited too, and he hasn't been bad. To me, he's been what I expected for a boy in the NHL.
Yeah, he's learning. I mean, you look at Connor Bedard his first couple of years and some of the things that he had to go through. Like, there is a learning curve to this. This is the best league in the world.
And I think also the learning curve for a centerman is very different than for a defenseman, than very different for a goaltender as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so the Flames did call up Daniil Miramanov. I'm assuming this is just because he has a spot in the dressing room and they can just sit him over there. And I think they want to probably for now want to give Brzeskevich some more AHL time. I think as the year goes on, if there's another injury, I do think we'll see Hunter Brzeskevich play some NHL games this year.
I think you'll see Brzeskevich recalled if a guy who's on the sort of active roster gets hurt. I don't see Miramanov playing. I think right now they're on a road trip. We always see the Flames want to carry an extra body or two on a road trip. I think Miramanov's there just an extra body.
Yeah. I mean, they did that with Dryden Hunt for a road trip earlier this year.
Exactly.
I mean, he wasn't going to play. He's just there, right?
I mean, let's say Anderson gets hurt or Ball gets hurt or Uyghur or Hanley. I think that Brzeskevich becomes the choice to bring up even just short term. But I don't want Brzeskevich coming up and, riding the pine. I'd rather he stays in the AHL playing games.
Yeah. 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 I think that
and you and I have talked about this a lot, Kevin, over the years. And I think you've got to bring up the right guy to the right position, not just the next guy up, right? Like, is it just, okay, let's bring up, I don't know, let's bring up Rory Cairns to replace Ryan Lomberg if he was hurt. No, I think you bring up a guy who's projected as sort of a fourth line guy to see how they play. And the guy's used to playing those kind of minutes and that kind of role.
Yeah. 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 It doesn't make sense for Cairns, who they do see as a top six forward, to play fourth line minutes, and it doesn't make sense
for Brzeskevich to sit on the bench.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense, and especially if you're criticizing the Flames for a development model and you think that Brzeskevich should be called up to be the seventh defenseman. I think that you're missing what the point is. Development, and we've talked about this over the years. Development is not linear. Development is not, it's never a straight line. There are always going to be players that are, that have to find their game a little bit later in their career. I mean, a good example of that is Vasily Podkolzin. The player that he was in Vancouver is not the same player he is in Edmonton. I think there's other players like that as well.
Sam Bennett.
Exactly. And Brad Treliving I will remember the quote of Brad Treliving when they traded Sam Bennett. Part of this is our fault. Part of this is Bennett's fault.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, like I have no problem with the call up on Miramanov, because even since it's come up, Kuznetsov still has that roster spot. If it was bring Miramanov up and take Kuznetsov out, I'd be upset. But I think that the right guys are still playing right now, and I don't see that changing. I don't think Miramanov gets they've got one more game in St. Louis and they come home. Like, I think unless there's some travesty and you have dysentery going through the team, I don't think that you're going to see Miramanov suit up with the Flames on this trip or this call-up.
No, I think Ryan Huska's last straw was the Vegas game.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's here. He's, a reliable body. He knows how to be a 7, 8, 9, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is a fine call-up for what they need.
Yeah. So coming up this week, you've got one more. You got the Blues, who are in 31st place tomorrow. And then Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks come to Calgary on Thursday. And it's Hockey Night in Canada, Winnipeg and Calgary on Saturday night. So interesting week ahead. You've got an exciting Sharks team and with a Blues team that is, fighting it for sure. I think my expectations of the Blues are not being met right now for sure. I expected better from them. The Sharks are exciting, but they, still got a lot of work to get to anywhere. But sure, it's exciting to watch Celebrini. And I still think Winnipeg is probably a Western Conference Stanley Cup contender. I know that they had a tough time against Anaheim, but don't count them out. So it's an interesting week this week in Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect much success here. The Flames can't beat good teams. The Flames can't beat bad teams. So you've got both good teams and bad teams this week. I don't know what to expect.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it next week. Anything else in Flamesland or that you wanted to discuss?
No, I think that's about it. I always encourage fans, and we've talked a lot about prospects today. Remember that just because the guy's not wearing the Flaming C doesn't mean you can't watch them and evaluate them, and that, go watch the Wranglers either in person or online. It's good hockey. And if you want to see some of these young players, they don't need to wear the C on their chest. They can wear the W and you can still see them. And I think that the AHL is more accessible now than it ever has been.
Yeah. Some good hockey to watch. And how do we follow you?
You can find us at firesidechat.ca. Our next episode will be coming out later tonight. Episode 399 for us, which is pretty exciting for us. We've been doing this a long time. And firesidechat.ca or next week's 400.
Wow.
So we're hoping. Thanks, Kevin. We're hoping for not a week of Flames loss to celebrate 400.
Yes, for sure. I never counted our episodes.
No, I mean, we started numbering our episodes way back when that's what you did. And a lot of the reason was, I mean, we've been doing this since, people actually listen to podcasts on iPods, and you had to number them to get them in the right sequential order for people.
Yeah. A fun fact for people that don't know, when I was recording podcasts on my iPhone, and then working in Satan, Calgary, it was you and Matt and I that did a recording just in front of the iPhone and chatted in a room. We booked a room in Satan podcast.
We sure did. Yeah. And I think you and I and another one of your old hosts did one as well.
Yeah, there was Corey and I think we did a Stanley Cup preview or something.
Yeah, you guys came to one of the classrooms at State to do that.
Yeah. When I was working at State. So funny enough. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to hear our 400th episode, subscribe to us, firesidechat.ca, or wherever fine podcasts are found, you'll find us, and you'll see episode 399 coming out shortly. And we have a lot of the same discussions, plus a few more in that one.
Right. We're going to break down the Canucks live tomorrow, noon Pacific, and the rebuild word has come across the land of Vancouver as well. We'll discuss that a little bit. The PWHL training camp is starting. We're going to look at that a bit and kind of look at the week of what happens in Vancouver. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com, Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com, Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me, KEVOLE. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And lest we forget, as we honor our veterans, we hope you have a great rest of your night. Bye for now.